Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 672 with a review of The Suicide Squad. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week in the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a streaming platform near you. This week, it's a little film coming to HBO Max. So if you have that, you were able to watch it, or you could have caught it in theaters. But yeah, we're here to talk about The Suicide Squad. So, as always, it probably makes sense to start the evening out by talking about our thoughts on Suicide Squad with no the.
Sure.
Stephen Miller, what did you think of Suicide Squad back when you, back when we saw it?
Well, exactly. So apparently it is canon that I was at least vaguely positive on it. I didn't revisit our review. You told me a little bit about it. What I remember feeling like it was taken for granted that Suicide Squad was like the worst movie that had ever been made. Like by the time I was watching it, it was like people hated it. Like it was getting just viscerally dunked on everywhere. And I went into the theater with that context, and my feeling was like, this is a hot mess of a movie for sure. Like the plot does not really make sense. But I was starting to get Marvel fatigue by then, and I kind of enjoyed that the movie was so wildly different looking. Like, say what you will about the DC movies, but they at least have this kind of splash of color, this kind of ridiculous palette that you don't get in any of the Marvel films. And a part of me was like, you know, it aimed big and it kind of struck out, but damn, do I like appreciate when movies at least go for it. And I think that was my feeling, which was, it wasn't a movie I ever really wanted to revisit. I've never thought like, oh, let me watch Suicide Squad again. But I felt like I had more fun with this than like The Winter Soldier or something. And that was kind of my semi-contrarian take, I think. Hot mess again, like the plot did not make sense, and the ending, the whole third act and the big bad and everything was just kind of dumb. But like I remember enjoying the fact that David Ayer's movie at least had like pizzazz and ridiculous energy that you wouldn't normally get in the studio superhero system.
Yeah, I honestly, before I went back and listened to the review and watched half of the movie before sitting down to do this review right now, I couldn't remember a thing about the original Suicide Squad other than the fact that I really didn't like it. Then I went back and listened to our review, which is episode 423, I think, abouts. And yeah, I really disliked that movie. That was a very heated episode with a lot of arguing between me and Carson. And that episode got hot for a while, cooled down by the end of the episode, and then it turned fun again. But yeah, I just really, really didn't like anything that it was doing, the way it put together whatever the story it was that it was trying to do. And for me, it just didn't work on a lot of different levels. As I said, you know, we had a little bit of time between when we were both done working for the day and when we were going to actually sit down to do this recording. So I was like, maybe I can watch a little bit of Suicide Squad before we review The Suicide Squad. And then I was like, oh, that's 2 hours, and I only have 1 hour, so I guess I'll watch the second hour of this film. And I went back through it, and I'm going to stand with my original
The second
review.
hour is much worse than the first hour, too. I remember that much.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things where it's like, as I was watching it, I was like, yeah, this film doesn't have the fun that it should have for what you're putting together. It's a bunch of characters who don't, for most of the characters that you see, they don't really get a chance to do anything, like save for the flame guy who gets to, you know, flame up or whatever at one point in the film. Yeah, he
gets hot and then he cools down, like our episode of the podcast.
Yeah. The lizard dude. I don't remember any of their names because I didn't watch the introductions of the characters. I just watched the characters later in the film. His great thing that he gets to do is talk about how he lives in the sewers and swim underneath the bad guy at the end of the movie. You know, there's like a bunch of moments where it's like nothing really exciting is happening. The villains don't make sense. None of the characters I actually know have a dumb interjection constantly within the story. And it kind of just, it was sort of it seemed like a waste of time. And the action itself wasn't even fun. Like, I can watch a big dumb movie, like say like a fast film, but it's like the action is so fun that it's like, you're like, hell yeah, and you're like throwing your fist in the air. Suicide Squad for me was not a film that fit into that bucket of action, adventure, whatever. It was just a movie where it's like you're throwing a bunch of random characters at me, and I just didn't care. When the first trailers for The Suicide Squad started to come out, it at least looked like it was reaching a tone that the first one never seemed to manage. The characters they're putting in the group are a little bit more strange. You know, it's the situations they're getting into are a little bit more funny, right? Like I at least, my interest was slightly piqued for the second one compared to the first one. But yeah, first one
I mean, I
didn't
think
work for me.
if I'm remembering correctly, I think the trailers for the first movie too got everyone pretty hyped. Like, I think it was a big letdown from trailer to reality when the movie came out.
Yeah. Like that is true.
The narrative like that has come out since then, which, you know, whatever, people wanting to release the Ayer cut, like it seems kind of predictable after the whole Snyder cut thing, but like the narrative is that the studio kind of edited that movie to death, or like noted that movie to death, and I think the incoherence kind of makes sense given that context. So I don't want to see a new cut of Suicide Squad, but I do kind of wonder what the movie would have looked like if it had been strung together with a more coherent plot rather than the kind of like mixtape of scenes that the movie wound up being in the end.
Yeah. Cool. Well, what do you say, Stephen, when we get into this?
Sure.
All right, we're going to take a listen to the trailer for The Suicide Squad, and then we're going to come back and give you a review.
Robert Dubois. He's in prison for putting Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet.
I'm not joining your Suicide Squad.
We'll see.
My court date is coming up. And Miss Waller said maybe you could help me out.
You're flexing in my door!
Everyone stand down.
Miss Waller, I don't...
Stand down!
I wouldn't take such extreme measures if this mission went more important than you could possibly imagine. Are you in or out? Good. Let's meet your team.
It's okay, I'm not okay.
Each member is chosen for his or her own completely unique set of abilities.
I need to feel the raindrops on my head.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. Had to go number 2.
Good to know.
Is this thing a dog?
A dog? What kind of dog do you think it is, mate?
I'm gonna go with Afghan Hound.
Oh my god, is it a werewolf?
Yo, they sent me into a werewolf! Yo, let me out!
Hey, he's not a werewolf, okay? He's a weasel. He's harmless. I mean, he's not harmless. He's killed 27 children, but, you know.
Your mission is to destroy every trace of something known only as Project Starfish. Any questions?
Starfish is a slang term for a butthole. Think there's any connection?
No.
No. All right. Let's get it. This is suicide.
Well, that's kind of our thing.
I'm a superhero!
Where's my dad?
I want to get you out of here alive.
I'm going to get you out of here alone.
Ratatouille, what do you got?
Bird.
Now it. Stay off the comm.
All right, so that was the trailer for The Suicide Squad. Basically, Task Force X, which is the group of people who are taken out of prison who have special abilities and sent off to do missions for the government, but secretly a new set of people are being tasked for the Force X to go off and try to fight another battle for the government lady. Stephen Miller, what did you think of The Suicide Squad?
So first, I just want to say I feel boxed in by my vaguely positive review of Suicide Squad years ago. Admittedly, that review was grading on a curve. But this year, look, we flattened the curve. We're in a whole new curve now. So prior opinions don't matter. We're in a new world, and however I review this does not mean it has to be compared to my review of the last one as if it were like a stack ranking, because this movie is clearly more coherent than Suicide Squad. Absolutely, clearly. It was not hacked away in the editing room. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Its characters largely go on particular arcs where we get to know them, at least the
ones that survive.
It doesn't sound like the trailer spoils a lot. So like, I would say the ones that survive, we get to know them. And it also, I think, like I mentioned, I liked the personality that I saw in the original Suicide Squad movie. This one definitely shows a more like consistent personality. James Gunn is James Gunn all the time in this movie. We have like the cotton candy colors, like Guardians. We have the gore, like his older movies. We have the needle drops. We have the irreverent dialogue. Like, this is definitely a James Gunn movie, and his style is all over the place. There are parts of it that we'll go into that I thought were like visually dazzling. Like there are some things where he just decides to go all out, and it is a ton of fun. But I also kind of feel like there's something a little boring about how consistent it is. Like, this felt like Guardians meets Deadpool to me. It felt like I knew exactly what we were getting, and we were always kind of in very safe terrain, which is funny to say about a movie where a shit ton of characters die and also murder innocent civilians. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, it felt irreverent in a very like bumper pool way. There's things like, it's in the trailer of John Cena saying like starfish is a slang for butthole, or like Harley Quinn talks about splooge and jokes about the number 69. And like, there are little things in there where it just like, it didn't always feel as wild as I feel like it should have, given the R-rated, this is a comedy about anti-heroes who do terrible things who are going to make you root for. Like, it felt a little bit safe, and I don't know how to explain that, because it was clearly bucking the trend. It was clearly being its own thing. This does not feel like a Marvel movie. Like, it feels like its own property, but I just still felt like I was in a kind of formulaic thing with guardrails some of the time when I wanted it to let loose a little bit more. With that said, I thought the style was really fantastic in parts when Gunn decides it to be. Like, pretty much any fight scene that Harley Quinn is in is really, really great in this movie. There's one involving like cartoon birds and flowers. There's another involving a shootout in like overexposed rain. There's a fight that's in a reflection of a helmet while the camera spins around it. The title cards in this movie are built from the environment, occasionally in these kind of fun, like jerry-rigged 3D to look 2D, depending on perspective things. Like, he is having a lot of fun when he wants to. And I think a lot of my hang-ups would have maybe played better in theaters when I could be with a crowd that is laughing or expressing shock or disbelief at the twists and turns the storyline takes. I just feel, for me, the giddy fun was muted a little bit in a way where the movie felt like, I don't know, it didn't feel like he was totally letting loose, and I don't know how to explain why, because everything on paper is letting completely loose and breaking every possible rule. But it was just a feeling I had. Like, overall, I liked it. I still was positive on this one. It was fun, but I think I like Jungle Cruise better, and that's kind of where I landed with this movie. I'll go into more, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
I mean, yeah. So all things being what they are, I also like Jungle Cruise better than this movie, because I fucking love Jungle Cruise. But anyways, we're not talking about Jungle Cruise. We're talking about this film. Yeah, so I think this is definitely a step in the right direction for this sort of franchise. I think that it knows what worked about the ideas of the first film and executes on them in a lot better way, in a way that actually makes sense. I mean, you know, just looking at the idea of, let's throw random people together that we don't care about, because there's only a few characters that we're following. I think this film picks better ideas for the random extra people to throw in with the group. And those people get a moment to do their thing that is not like just wait for the guy that has the most powerful attack to do the most powerful attack, right? It's actually playing with it. And I think that what this film does too is it understands the idea of throwing these, you know, I'll call them, for my universe knowledge, they're like lesser characters that I wouldn't have ever cared about if they weren't in one of these movies.
Right.
It knows what it's doing with it. It's choosing people that are a little bit silly and then dispatching with them instantly. Have you seen it all, Invincible on Amazon Prime?
No, I haven't.
So it's an animated, comic book story about like a young guy who is like basically just begun to get his powers. His dad is like the greatest superhero on the planet, and he's just starting to get his powers, and it's sort of about him trying to find his way into becoming a hero. But what that show does in an amazing fashion is the lead character will be fighting some weird force that has just arrived, and all these other heroes from the city show up, and you get to see them do a really cool move with whatever their power is, and then they're instantly dead. And it's like you're just watching you're watching that show introduce a character that sometimes you don't even get to know their name, and then they're immediately killed in a horrific fashion. And I think that this film, obviously, it doesn't go as far as that show does, because that show's it's hand-drawn animation, and it's like it can do way more grotesque stuff with its cartoon style that you can't really shoot like live action. But it plays with this idea of, we're just going to throw any single character in the book at you and then just get them out of there because they're not important to the story, but you'll see them for a second. And you're like, oh, that was pretty rad. Oh my God, they're dead. Oh my God, they're dead. And I think that this film tries to play with that at the beginning. And then once it's done with that, it throws you back into like, okay, now we're following these characters and you're going to go forward and spend time with them. And I think ultimately these characters are pretty fun. I think each character has a quirk that plays within the rest of the group. In the first film, it seemed like a bunch of people who don't want to be working together, but are having to work together because they have an explosive in the back of their head, right? This film, they also have an explosive in the back of their head, but they kind of have this like begrudging respect for each other, and it's like a combination of camaraderie and also like one-upsmanship that they're playing with that like I think really, really works for what this film is trying to do. It's not like I didn't come out of this thing floored. Like I kind of felt like there was something sort of missing from it too. But in general, I found it pretty fun, and it goes to places that are kind of silly, and I enjoyed it. The one thing that does kind of weird me out is this feels like a complete reboot of the first film. So much so, it's not just like, let's try to do it right this time. It's borrowing the exact same beats and character. Like, I even had to double check that Deadshot and Bloodsport are two different characters, right? Because it's literally the same archetype. Like, and the funny thing too is, having gone back and rewatched Suicide Squad, there was a whole thing with Will Smith's character where he's like, I'm only doing this because I want my daughter to realize that I'm not a piece of shit. And that's like something that is paid off in this film for a different character whose abilities are identical to Will Smith's character in that film. But then it feels like it's making a joke about that, because it appears that at least 4 of the characters that you first are introduced to at the beginning of this film all have the same abilities, but one is hand-to-hand. It's like 3 people who just carry guns and they're really good shots. You have Pete Davidson. Yeah. You have the one guy who's like more hand-to-hand combat. And it's like, it seems like the joke is that they got smart and they're just putting all the gun shooting people on the team because that's the only power that's going to matter with what the situation is. And it's like, I can't tell what is like super smart and knows exactly what it's doing, or what is just like, let's just redo the film completely and kind of just start it all over from scratch. Because even like, take Harley Quinn's story in the first film, right? The film keeps sidetracking itself to go back and tell this relationship montage about her and the Joker, right? This film does the exact same thing, but instead of the Joker, it's just this other person. And it's like, the movie completely changes just for that amount of time. And it's like, that's like, it feels a little bit like A New Hope and like the beginning of the newest trilogy of Star Wars films, right? Like, it feels like they're like, we're going to hit all the same beats. We're going to do a Lego sequel, but it's the same. It's the same. Some of the same cast members, and that film was not that old.
A lot of the same beats, a lot of the same shocking moments, a lot of the same general archetypes, a lot of the jokes, a lot of the character type. I feel like it is mostly a comment on Suicide Squad, but it does feel like kind of a mean one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it feels like you could at least kind of pay respect to the fact that the original movie existed and like mention their mission once or twice at least. And it doesn't feel like, other than the fact that Flag and Harley Quinn know each other, I feel like there's nothing in this movie that actually says like, oh yeah, that movie happened before.
Yeah. But it's also like, I mean, spoilers for Suicide Squad, the first film, but like they have what they think their mission is, and then it turns out that their mission is really just to destroy all the evidence that anything was even happening. And then in this film, their actual mission is just to go and destroy all the evidence that something is happening. Yep. It's like literally the same film with slightly different things. And really, even the big bad's final goal,
very similar,
is like, let's destroy all the world powers, right?
Yep.
It's like it's so strange to me how close these two films actually are, in a way that I didn't realize until I went back and listened to me talking about the first film and then watched the second half of the first film. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I would not have appreciated that. But now that you say it, I'm remembering like, yep, that is the same, and that is the same, and that is the same.
Yeah. Also, the real fast, you talked about a fight with Harley Quinn where there was like in the Suicide Squad, the latest film, where there was like CG stuff happening, or not CG, it was like cartoons sort of happening around, and that's sort of her. It's sort of like she's not seeing blood, she's seeing cartoon stuff like flowers and stuff spouting out at people. There's the scene right at the end of the first film where they come in and you know, the witch lady is like doing all these colors, and she goes, "Do you guys see all the sparkly colors and stuff? Because I'm not on my meds anymore." And it's like, clearly it's like, once again, a manifestation of that same thing, where it's like, at that time she thought all the weird colors she was seeing was just because she was off her meds, and now it's like she's being badass, but it's still like referencing that in a way. Like,
I mean, that can be seen as more of a payoff, at least. Like, she teed up how she sees the world in one movie, and now we get to experience it in another. I feel like this movie I don't know enough about production schedules to know if this is realistic or not, but I feel like it learned from Birds of Prey, or at least it seems like it has a fluid. The way she fights fits very well with the way Birds of Prey has her fighting too, which I kind of liked. I still don't think that character is growing in any meaningful way. Like, my understanding of Harley Quinn is no better now than it was 2 movies ago.
Yeah,
but it is fun to see.
You gotta watch the animated cartoon.
Oh yeah, then I'll know about how it feels for Batman to go down on her. That's the one thing that came for that show, I think.
I think that's in an upcoming season. But, and I think it was Catwoman, not her. Anyways, point being, that show is A, great, and B, like, she does grow in that show. That's like, the whole show is about her growing. So
that's good. Okay, so let's talk about characters that worked for us, characters that didn't. I'm gonna say who worked for me. Idris Elba, big fan.
Great.
Always fan of like rugged Idris Elba who's tired of this shit. Perfect. Love that he has grown into being that guy for us now. Daniela Melchior, who played Ratcatcher 2 and is like a Portuguese actress who hasn't really done any big American things before. Big fan. I think she did great. Surprising character for the Suicide Squad, kind of like the heart of the movie, where otherwise everyone is very self-referential.
Yeah.
King Shark. Oh, King Shark. I love me some King Shark.
King Shark
when I was a
great.
kid, my favorite action figure was a Street Sharks action figure, which was just like this big fucking shark.
Wait, were they the ones that like rollerbladed and played hockey or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had action figures of them, and I thought it was so cool, like this big shark that can walk around. Like, I love one James Gunnism that I'm just going to draw from Guardians, and this is like he loves having animalish type creatures alongside regular ones. Like, I'm going to lump Groot in that category. You know, we went from Vin Diesel to Sly Stallone. Rocket Raccoon, we've got, you know, rats here and weasels here. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of that vibe. And King Shark was great. Love King Shark. Who didn't work for me? I don't know if this is going to be, controversial. John Cena did not work at all for me in this movie. I like conceptually the idea of him and Idris Elba kind of having a dick measuring contest. But I just didn't think anything about him was funny in this movie at all. And he generally was the mouthpiece for the most like juvenile humor that felt just like out of place with the movie. I really didn't vibe with him. And I would have rather seen Dave Bautista just like do it instead and play it more like in that serious way that he does in Guardians.
But like so I like Peacemaker is not a character you root for, right?
Sure.
He's the foil for Bloodsport, but like I mean, obviously, like the dumb joke is that he is so for peace he's willing to murder kids and women in order to achieve
America.
it, right? It's dumb and it's juvenile, but I think it works because you have the rest of the people who are playing it a little more serious. And like, come on, the payoff for that in the end of that dick measuring contest is so perfect.
Payoff is good.
Yeah.
I just like didn't like it is in the trailer when he like stops Viola Davis's like debrief to ask if starfish is a slang term for butthole. And I feel like there are actors who could play that in a way that is very funny, and for him it just like ground the movie to a halt for me. I don't know why. It just didn't totally work whenever he had to deliver a joke.
Yeah.
I know I'm in the minority. Like people clearly like him in this movie. I just like didn't work for me.
Yeah, I think for me the reason it did work is because I can't tell whether he is the Joker in the back of the class who's just annoying, or he earnestly is saying all the things he's saying, right? Like it's that fine line, and I think you tip it either direction in the wrong way, and it's like it rubs you the wrong way. But like for me, I was like, yeah, this guy's such a douche.
Yep, I get it. He just, I don't know. He felt like the epitome to me of the kind of edgy with like bumpers to keep you from going over the edge that I feel like the movie has sometimes. He was kind of that for me, of like, I get it. You're funny and you're a little whatever, but I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. He just kind of was what was wrong with the movie to me.
Do you still have a list of people who don't work for you?
No, he's the only one that doesn't work for me.
Okay. I was worried you were going to say the Polka Dot Man or whatever didn't work for you.
I'm like neutral on the Polka Dot Man. I like him when he gets used.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that's sort of like I mean, quite literally, he is the equivalent to the flame guy from the first film, right? It's like the guy who doesn't want to use his powers because he's scared of them a little bit, doesn't know how to do it, and when he does use his powers, it involves putting both hands out forward and having CG mess fly at them. But I really like the idea of that character, and sort of, I think the manifestation for how he can angle himself towards somebody, that was like, that joke grew kind of old to me.
Totally.
Especially when you're trying to attack one thing and you're visualizing another thing. I didn't understand how the physics of targeting worked in that moment. But I definitely also thought, like, the entire movie, I was like, I'm pretty sure he can solve everybody's problems. Like, he seems powerful enough on his own to have been able to accomplish anything they need to, as long as he was willing to put in the effort, right?
Yep.
Which kind of added a weird sort of sense of what was going on to me.
Yeah, I'm neutral about him, neutral about Captain Flag or whatever. They're fine. They're fine. I'm afraid I'm tipping my hand by talking about certain characters and not others, about twists that happen, so I almost don't want to keep going.
You don't want to keep naming people? Can we at least talk about Nathan Fillion, TDK?
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely, I think, the best use of what are you really actually trying to do with putting some random character into your world. Great payoff too for the acronym.
Yep. Nope, I agree.
Since you're scared to step too far into territory of naming all the characters and trying to skate around whether or not they make it through the film, are there other things that you want to talk about?
It requires tiptoeing around spoilers, but there's a part of the movie involving infiltrating a rebel base that I thought was like funny at home I feel like in theaters I would be roaring with laughter, and I kind of regret that I will never get to experience that fresh. I usually don't mind watching a movie at home, but I felt like this one in particular, like there would have been, the payoff would have hit so different if I had been in a big crowd of people. And I don't know. I like don't know how I feel about what the movie is doing there in terms of how far it pushes you. But I think
is this related to the dick measuring contest?
Yeah.
No, I laughed out loud by myself.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Like it is definitely funny. That is the one place that I think the movie actually becomes edgy in a real way rather than just in a kind of plasticky way where I'm like, oh, I don't know how I should feel about this, but it is funny. I just wish I could have seen that in a theater full of shocked people, like not knowing vocally how to react to what was going on.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. And I think that like those type of moments are the things that make this film enjoyable. Like, right? There's like, even when it's, I don't even think that this film has any fully bad parts. I think it just at times is sort of, it sort of screeches to a halt at times, right? Like it just sort of becomes a thing where you're like, okay, cool, let's just go. Let's not take all, like, we're going to have 5 minutes in the middle where we're all going to sit on a little bus and we're going to tell backstories for literally no reason. It feels like when you're playing like a video game and they got to load the next level. So you're in an elevator and the characters just talk to each other. Like that's literally what it feels like. But in general though, I think there's enough fun sort of sprinkled throughout this film that there's always something to get on board with. And yeah, like I think too that, some of the action sequences, though they're really short, have a lot of inventiveness to them and are pretty fun, including like the big bad action sequence at the end. Like I enjoyed sort of what was going on there.
Yeah. Big bad is fun.
Man, that bad guy did the same thing too. It's literally the same shit.
Big bad is definitely done better here than it is in the original Suicide Squad.
Oh man.
But yeah, the similarities are odd between the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I had fun. I'm glad I'm not the only one who like had fun, but feels kind of, because I know Rotten Tomatoes is not an aggregate of average scores. Like it reflects how many people liked it more than they disliked it.
Yeah.
But it did feel like the discourse or whatever in the last week was like, whoa, James Gunn's Suicide Squad is like revitalizing the superhero movie, is like DC's back, baby, and all this stuff. And like, I never felt it on that high. I felt it way more like I was watching a like, Deadpool or something of like, yeah, I get it. You're doing your thing. It's fun, but like, it isn't getting me jazzed. I will definitely watch a sequel. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I will say that Deadpool gets me jazzed. So I'm not quite sure I understand the analogy. But I do get what you mean. Yeah. Like I felt the same way. Like I was like, man, they really did work to improve all the things I didn't like about the first movie. And then I went, oh, they're just literally improving all the things I didn't like about the first movie. But it was fun. And I really can't fault, anybody for wanting to be a part of this one, because it definitely seems like a step in the right direction. The Squad or Suicide, whatever the next movie's called, is probably going to be like achieving exactly what I want from this franchise.
Yep. I do think it's interesting to compare this to Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, because it also has a kind of similar arc in terms of like characters being recruited for a mission, going from point A to point B, certain ones having different agendas, you losing them over time. And definitely this one is way more coherent than that movie too. So like, James Gunn also beat Zack Snyder at something. So I feel like he really is ascending in the DC universe.
Cool. Any last thoughts about this film, Stephen?
I just want to say I liked Deadpool, just to put it on the record. I just think the humor of Deadpool would be stale if it was repeated today. That's all.
We'll see when they make another Deadpool.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. Well, time for verdicts then?
Sure.
All right. Stephen Miller, if you're going to give us a must-see, recommend with a caveat, wait for rental, pass with a caveat, or must avoid, what would you give it?
I am sticking with recommend with a caveat for this one. It is the same ranking that I gave the original Suicide Squad. I did like this better than the original Suicide Squad, but I did not adore this movie. I think it felt a little bit limited. It felt like James Gunn was coloring in the lines a little bit more than he needed to, and it would have been fun to see him really let loose while still using the skill to tell a coherent story. So high hopes that a sequel will do it better. This one just kind of was like a little bit more hit or miss to me when it should have been just a nonstop crescendo in ridiculousness. So hope he can pull it off next time. Had enough fun, but did not adore it.
So for me, I'm going to give a recommend with a caveat as well. I had fun with this movie. I enjoyed it enough, and I think that others, especially considering not everybody hated the first one as much as I did, I think lots of people could enjoy this. But as I was about to go into that, I did start to think about the fact that Harley Quinn escapes prison at the end of the first film, and then at the beginning of this film, she's part of Task Force X. Never explained. Why.
Do they not say what she did to get back in prison? I thought they all kind of share notes.
Maybe they did. Maybe they did. I'm sort of forgetting at the beginning.
I feel like
also, that's the. So the beginning of the first film, right? Will Smith, like he's basically in prison because he almost killed Batman. And then this one, Idris Elba, is in prison because he almost killed Superman.
Yeah.
It's the same fucking
they really
movie.
Compare everything. I think Harley Quinn robs a bank. I think there's some joke about her having robbed a bank.
She does say... No, wait. Did she also rob a bank? Because the rat girl says she robbed a bank and was charged with deadly weapon, even though the weapon was the rats.
No, you're right. It was Ratcatcher too who said it.
Yeah. But anyways, I mean, either way, your statement is correct. At the beginning of the film, it's not like it starts the day after the other film. But the other thing I wanted to ask you is, so when they pluck people out of prison, they inject a little explosive in the back of their neck as a way of controlling them, right? Why would that explosive just not always be in their neck? Right? Like, you're letting people break out of prison when you had a deterrent preventing them from breaking out of prison already, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Because the whole premise of this of Task Force X, this program, is that A, you get an explosive in the back of your neck so you don't just like go AWOL, and B, every mission you complete is 10 years off your sentence. So why not just keep the explosive in the neck until they've worked their sentence off completely, and then you don't have to worry about them ever escaping?
Hey, maybe they're dangerous. Maybe having an explosive in your neck in the prison is like putting the guards at risk. I don't know. Though it does seem like the blast radius of that thing is not that big. It seems pretty much like an individual danger. Yeah,
it doesn't have to be very big to do what it needs to do.
Yeah. Isn't there another movie where like a person has an explosive in their head and it's like just tiny, like they just like are dead but you don't see anything happen? Is that like in a Bond movie or something? Or Mission Impossible movie? I
don't know. I'm sure it's in several movies. It's a pretty nice way to do it. Yeah, there was a Mission Impossible movie. It's up through the nose, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's in the Philip Seymour Hoffman one, right?
I believe. Yeah. But anyways, that was just one more thing I wanted to bring up right before we transition to saying goodbye to everybody. So yeah, thanks everybody for listening to this episode. Stephen Miller, people want to find you throughout the week. Where can they do
that? People can find me at twitter.com/sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or Twitter.com/ChristopherIRL. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com, where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so in Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at Twitter.com/SpoilerWarning, Facebook.com/TheSpoilerWarning, or Instagram.com/TheSpoilerWarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from the soundtrack to The Suicide Squad, so hopefully you're enjoying that. And this week we have one more review coming into the feeds, and that's a review of Pig. So, see you in a bit. Bye.
Oink, oink, motherfuckers.